the 2-minute meditation. It's just going to be silence. You can put off your video, put off your audio. I'll time, and then I'll chime back in when the 2 minutes are over. Let's go. Starting now. Welcome back, everybody. Cool. Thank you so much. We are on page 48 at the second paragraph, where it kicks off and it says, the reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Remember, one of the rules that we've got here while we're all engaging with each other in this room is we Google definitions. So I'm definitely going to Google this because I've always used this, but never actually gone to go look at what the context is and what this actually means. So let's go check it out because we're letting go of old ideas. You're helping me. Stickler for facts. Let's have a look. It says here, the definition, one who insists on exactness or completeness in the observance of something. What is the meaning? A person who insists on exactness or completeness of details. Wow. Okay. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of a doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reason, without a reasonable assumption as a starting point. I base my so this is it. Like we all know, if we flick on that light switch, it's the power comes on, not without questioning how it happened. Yes, we can sit down and we're going to talk a little bit more about it now with the iron steel girder. But we're switching on that electricity. We walk into a dark room. We know the light's going to come on. And without thought, we walk out again and we switch it off. And it's off. We've based such faith on the fact that that room is going to get lit up when we walk in by the flick of that tiny little switch. And we spoke about last week how we relied heavily on our own ideas, our own reasoning. We had a faith. We had a faith in what the drugs could do for us. We had a faith in what the drink could do for us. It was an unshakable foundation, that faith. And all we're asking you to do is just to move in this chapter. We're just asking you to just move a tiny iota over onto the other side with the statement, maybe. That's it. That's all we're doing here. So I'm just refreshing some memories from last week. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. So I gave this some thought, like Bluetooth, for instance. We can Bluetooth huge files in an instant. You know, I can take a photo and I can WhatsApp it over to you. I have no idea how it gets to you, but I know for a fact that if I click attach and I send my photograph, I'm going to wait for your response within the next couple of seconds because I know you got it. I have no idea how it works, but I know you got it. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? Yes. Bill, go ahead.
Really going to step outside of the box today, Nadia. I was at two 12 and 12 meetings back to back, and they happened to both be on page 36. We're not deviating from the big book, but let's really look at what's being told to us here. On page 36, it says every modern house has electric. This is in the 12 and 12. So if you're big book fanatics and you didn't pay attention to where I said it was, don't be looking in your big book. It won't be there. Every modern house has electric wiring carrying power and light to its interior. Every human being has an umbilical cord inside of it that takes power exactly where it's supposed to go. It says, we are delighted with that dependence. And our main hope is that nothing will ever cut off the supply of current. What step 3 is going to explain in the depth when we get there is what we're going to find in step 4 that's cutting us off from the blockage into the spiritual umbilical cord, how we're blocked from the power. You know, I told you 2 weeks ago we had an electrical storm here and power went out in the neighborhood. Some parts of the city were out for a week. We were only affected for 2 days. But that means we sat in the dark at night. Everything in the refrigerator got rotten and had to be thrown out, so on and so forth. No air conditioning could run. If you're going to take a shower, it's going to be cold and it's going to be in the dark. So what dawned on me is right outside of the house, if there wasn't a power failure, but the power ran to the house and the transformer wasn't connected, if I had a short circuit or the fuse was blown, the power couldn't come in to where these electrical wires and lights were situated to light and empower the house. What they're telling us here, I believe, in this We Agnostics chapter, is that there's something blocking us from the power. So when it says everyone believes in electricity and an assumption that it starts somewhere, each one of us deep down inside has this innate premise of this power. What's blocking me from the current flowing into me? Because if it's blocked flowing in, it can never flow through. God never has a problem getting the power or the message to me. Sometimes I keep it out when I'm blocked, but he can never get it through me as long as I stay blocked. So it's just a point. Now I'm going to share a revelatory experience since we're on tape. Nadia, and I know you're a stickler for the big book. So let's get back to the book. Page 44. This revelation, T, you're going to like. To one who feels he is agnostic or atheist, such an experience seems impossible, a spiritual experience they're referring to. And when me and Paul were talking last week, I said, into one who feels that he believes already, such an experience seems unnecessary. How many of us approach this program believing in God with no evidence that we believe in God? In other words, I can profess a tremendous faith and demonstrate that I have no power whatsoever. It's because of my belief in the other direction. I'm not saying I don't know or I refuse to know. What I'm saying is I know for sure something that I don't know at all. That's agnosticism, my good friend.
Yeah, and we're talking to both the agnostic and the atheist tonight. Thanks, Bill. And just a little reference to what you were saying, Nana, we cannot transmit what we don't have. And that's that we're doing is we're just blocked. That's all. We're just blocked. We're not bad people, we're not stupid people, we're just blocked because we're driven by 100 forms of fear, driven by 100 forms of self-pity, self-delusion, and resentment. That's it. And we're going to launch on over into some inventory a little later on when we do get there. Hey, Bill. All right, now we're going to talk about that power steel girder that crashed in Bill's Valley, and in South Africa tends to do quite often. But we've had a really long run where we've had power in my country for quite a while now. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. All right, the prosaic. We're at the bottom of page 48, and welcome to those who've just joined us. We're just going to be reading through for the next hour or so, myself and Bill just back and forth, and then afterwards we'll go into some Q&A with you lovely people. The prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. And I know Rob's going to drop some awesome image of what this prosaic steel girder looks like. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is a just caveat for our atheists and our agnostics in the room. Remember, we said if that word God is still making you bristle with antagonism, this chapter is going to invite you and offer you some new phrases, some new names for this all-seeing, all-powerful God that we're speaking about. And here it is, all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence. Right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. So we can believe that there's a massive electron swirling around, but the minute we try and tell you that there's a God behind that, you're like, no, that alcoholic mind of ours just snapped shut, right? Remember Bill sitting in front of Ebby? I make a lot of reference to that because he had a miracle right in front of him, like we have here tonight. I don't use that term loosely, Bill. We've got some dead men walking here. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking, remember your special highlighter for the thinking words? There it is. There's a thinking word. It's referring to our thinking because this disease centers in our mind. So the minute we're doing some kind of thinking around a concept or an old idea, I can tell you we're back into that alcoholic frame of mind. We believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life is originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. So the fact that we've all been kept alive against our best wishes, against our best efforts, means that it's a moot and null and void point. What's the point? We're all sitting here, then you're not miracles. Then are you still telling me that, I mean, how many times did you wake up either trying to commit suicide or just with the amount of alcohol and substances that we put into our systems, we wake up the next morning and it's like, how is it possible that we're still around? And you're telling me that there's nothing, no value attached to that? We continue. Remember I said to you, one of the most awesome gifts in AA, or at least down this journey of the big book, is we get given a identity. Because if you're anything like me, I was a chameleon latching onto anybody. If they were grunge, I wore grunge clothes. If they were disco freaks, I was a disco freak. If they were little rave bunnies, I did the same thing. I just wanted an identity, anything, just to fit in. And here I am in AA, and you guys give me some very clear-cut identities. Here they are. Instead of regarding ourselves as Nadia, Bill, Texas, Paul, Michelle, intelligent agents, Claire, Marty, spearheads of God's ever advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? And you know what I love about that last statement that he does there? Not just the fact that it's like, I'm God, I've got the last say, I'm the beginning and end, you know, how vain, but he's also saying that the second, because he uses many words that have two intentions. It's rather vain, like it's pointless. That's a pointless exercise. Go ahead, Bill.
I love when you call me Bull. Bull, Bull. So there's a word that appeared in those two paragraphs, and because they were so close together, they stood out. And the word is assumption. The password is assumption. That's for anyone who knows how that game Password was played. Only me and Rob were alive back then. So it says, it talks about a reasonable assumption. Everybody nowadays believes scores of assumptions for which there is no good evidence. So I assume that the power did not exist in the switch. It doesn't come from my light switch. I assume it comes from somewhere. And then it says in the I'm sorry, that was 48, the bottom of 48. And then the next paragraph on the top of page 49 says, we have no reason to doubt it when science demonstrates this. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption, which may be another word for reasonable, but it's logical, is suggested that underneath, not only don't we take it, but we laboriously set out to prove it isn't so. I don't run around trying to prove that electricity is not electricity. So why is it that some of us are so adamant to laboriously set out to prove that underneath the material world is nothing spiritual? In other words, it's not even that we won't take the assumption, Nadia. What we say is not only won't we take the assumption, we're going to do everything in our power to prove that what you're telling us isn't real or true. That's insanity.
I'm in the right room, brother. Insanity indeed. Guilty as charged. Just while we're at it, I just absolutely love this identity that we get given in AA. Besides the fact that I get to be a mom again, I get to be a friend, I get to be a daughter, I get to be a contributing member of society. I get to be a member of many fellowships. A member, wow, a member. I mean, I don't know how many gym contracts I took to be a member, and it lasted a couple of days, at most a month. I get to be a member of this revolutionary fellowship. Let's go look at some more titles that we get given, some more. Thank you. 62. Page 62, the last paragraph right at the bottom. We are agents. We are God's children. We're actors. So there's a role we get to play here. We do get to wear outfits and, makeup and get to wear a couple of different wigs if we want to, because there are roles that we get to play. We need to meet different people at different levels. We get to speak to kings and paupers, and we get to speak the language of the cave. So if you just want to line that out and think to yourself, the awesome identity you get given in AA, well, in the 12-step fellowships at least. All right, so now that we've stopped being vain and declaring that, this is impossible. There has to be a God, right? Page 49, the third paragraph. We who have traveled this dubious path, I just put up my hands because I've definitely done that. And I saw a couple of nodding heads here. So I see some more raised hands. Thank you. I don't have to be the only weirdo here on my own. We who have traveled this dubious path beg you. They beg us a few times in this book, but they're begging us to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. Oh, man. I can't tell you how many inventories I've done around organized religion. and I'm busy with some more inventory, and they're back on there. They're top contenders, but that's okay. We're digging, we're unearthing, we're discarding. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. You know, I remember on a Sunday morning, the nightclub that I used to frequent in one of the many cities that I've lived in, because it was, you know, it was the address's fault, right? That I used the way I did. It was this suburb's fault that I drank the way I did. Anyway, it was at this nightclub on a Sunday morning when the club eventually, you know, lights off and kind of shoot us out the door by 4 or 5 in the morning. We'd all be sitting on the lawn, smoking, drinking the last bit of what we've got, swallowing the last bit, whatever, doing whatever we do, and watching the sun come up. And I would see people, there was a church next to it. I would see people jogging, at like pretty early in the morning. I used to say to, like, we all used to sit there, we'd be like, check these losers. Like, this is the life, you know, like these losers doing running on a Sunday morning. And then the church would start filling up. And I tell you, the look of disdain that we gave these poor souls, but there were so many of them. And they all looked pretty chilled, pretty well rested, pretty relaxed, you know, unencumbered, maybe one or two with a couple of frowns, but not like us, you know, fizzled out, not having slept for 4 days, broke, busted, disgusted, not to be trusted. Actually, we're back on page 49. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatsoever. I lined it out here and I wrote here, I had no idea. Like, not reasonable conception. I had no idea. Like, let's just get down to brass tacks here. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded people of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness, which we should have sought ourselves. Guys, those are the fundamentals of a good, solid life: stability, happiness, and usefulness. And if you stick around long enough, this is what your life looks like as, well, newcomer, the one who's just come back in here, the one who's struggling, one who hasn't taken these steps, one who's not sponsoring and experiencing a life beyond their wildest dreams, not yet rocketed. Stick around. This is what you get to experience: a life of stability, usefulness, and happiness. Those are the fundamentals that we're striving for here. Over to page 50. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people. My word. You're right. No, Bill, you've got to go for it. I'm going to start laughing. I'm just thinking of how ridiculous I used to be on those Sunday mornings. I had a head full of ideas about those church-going folks.
I assume sometimes that I made the logical assumption that I knew what cynically meant. And it means more than just the negative distrust. Here's what it says: in a distrustful way that expresses a belief that people are motivated purely by self-interest. So when I'm cynically dissecting those faiths, I'm not just cynically dissecting what they're doing. I'm not just scoffing at them. What I'm doing is thinking that they're doing that for a benefit only for them. What a projection. I'm only doing what's a benefit for me. And I see that in the people that are out there trying to get some direction in their life. And even so, it says the word you meant, the frailties, human frailties of various base. So what we're doing is looking at people that are so-called agents, and then we're going to what they're representing and finding fault with that. Me and a couple members earlier today, we're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous is an extension of a lot of sick platforms. We don't end up here on a winning streak, right? This is not the Knights of Columbus. And then I get mystified or dismayed when they act sick. Remember, this is an extension of the nut houses, the bars, the prisons, and the streets. And because of all other fellowships, the meth labs, the trap houses, the crack houses, and the dope holes, you're not getting any spiritually minded individuals at their first meeting that have been to the mountaintop and seen the face of the Almighty. You're getting a bunch of twisted, broken people that when they look at us, what they really see in us is what they cannot see within themselves. We're not that far advanced. We may get to step 4 by 2027 at this rate.
So let's just go look at a practical application of what Bill's talking about here. In Bill's story on page 11, Ebby's talking to Bill. He's told him that he's got religion, and Bill's going through all his prejudices, all his old ideas. He's running through them, right? Page 11, right at the top. And he says, to Christ, I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him. His moral teaching, most excellent. For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult, the rest which I disregarded. So in that sentence, he's, like Bill said, he's projecting his selfishness on these guys. He's like, yeah, they follow this guy called Christ, and call themselves Christians. But I mean, have you seen what they do on a Monday? They go to church on a Sunday, but Monday they're back in the gambling houses, back on the street corners. And the second thing that he's justifying his disdain for these people of faith is, yeah, he likes the teachings, but there's 10 commandments, like do not commit adultery. That one's definitely not for me. I love my husband's wife, my neighbor's wife. So that's what we're talking about. Here's Bill going through exactly what we're trying to invite you in. Like we say the set aside prayer at the beginning of this meeting every single time. It's not a made up prayer. It's not something that someone said once at a meeting and everyone latched onto it and plagiarized it. It comes out of the big book. And yeah, they beg
Why
you
don't you
to lay
read the
aside
next
prejudice.
paragraph since we're going backwards in time and now we'll get to step 4 maybe in 2030. Since we're going back to Bill's story, read the next paragraph because it really displays what you're talking about there.
The wars, we're back on page 11. The wars which had been fought, the burnings and chicanery, which is tricks and lies, that religious dispute had facilitated, made me sick. I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind had done any good. Judging from what I had seen in Europe and since, the power of God in human affairs was negligible, the brotherhood of man a grim jest, a sick joke. If there was a devil, he seemed the boss, universal, and he certainly had me. I just want to, on this, make another little note that, Rob, maybe you can just, I don't know, I can't remember what page it's on, but there's a condition that says any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. And what Bill's doing here is he's saying it's God's fault of all these things. And we're saying, no. We make a very clear statement in the book that any life run on self-will. This is what a life on self-will looks like. Bombing, cities being destroyed, people being taken hostage. That's what a life run on self-will with a whole bunch of people together looks like. That's not a God gone faulty.
And the reason I had you read that is kind of threefold now. You can really tear this apart for a while. So he's looking at what religious dispute had facilitated, attributing that to God. The wars that have been fought, the burnings, the chicanery, that's God's fault, even though it's the people that are fighting over religion and faiths are. He has a hard time believing in God. He can certainly believe in the devil. Where do you get that assumption as a starting point? But most importantly, Nadja, the power of God in human affairs was negligible. In We Agnostics, it tells us what we have to stop doing. We had to stop doubting the power of God. He's doubting the power of God based on the people who claim to be godly, who don't show much evidence of the power of God in human affairs, and are killing each other in the name of whatever faith they're representing, because through their own agnosticism, I have to be right. And in order for me to be right, you must be wrong. I can't open my mind. I can't change my mind. And usually because it's of some construct that if I change my mind, I'm going to hell, and I don't want to go hell. I'd rather send the rest of the world.
Yeah. Thank you. So now we're back. Oh, I've just lost my page. Where were we? Sorry.
Been doing this for 7 months. I suppose we're somewhere around page 12 by now, 48 or 49.
Oh yeah, we were still making fun of them church-going folk on an early Sunday morning. That's right. Welcome to those who've just joined us. We're on page 50. Thank you. Thanks, Texas T. Page 50. Yeah, that's right. We were talking about looking at the human defects and not actually looking at the peace that they have because they're following this lifestyle of faith.
That word
Page
again before you turn the page, Nadja, that we kind of glossed over, the dubious path. Dubious
Yes.
meaning doubtful. So it's a doubtful path, and it talks about the dubious luxury of resentment for normal folks. It's doubtful. It's not for us. And we've got a doubtful path that we're traveling on. And no matter how doubtful it is, I still find fault with what's going on your path.
Yeah, there's a couple of really tight laws for us in this program if you're working the deal. We do not have the luxury of the grouch and the brainstorm. We do not get to walk this dubious path of doubting in the power of God, and we don't get to be critical ever. Page 50, halfway through that first paragraph, we talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by some of the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. Let's just stop. Let's see. Is this true for us? Let's change these statements into questions. I see some hands going up. Yay, I'm in the room. I'm with the right people here. Absolutely. Have I spoken of how intolerant everybody, these pastors, they don't let the woman preach, and look how intolerant they are of women, but yet I am intolerant. I don't even speak of my intolerance. Have I looked at the beautiful trees and the forest and then thought to myself, damn, they should rather make a path through there? Like, why in the parking? Like, I start criticizing immediately. Is this a case for some of us in these rooms? Have I given the spiritual side of life a fair hearing? I turned my back on the spiritual side of life when I was 15. I turned my back. I didn't slightly deviate. I turned my back 180 degrees, and I was dangerously anti-religious. So I definitely didn't give it the fair side. Definitely.
I just want to admit something here on film, so I can't take it back. I never knew what a spiritual side of life was, to be quite honest, till I read it in this book. I knew what religion was. I knew what breaking the law was or violating spiritual principles, but they were never called spiritual principles. They were called commandments, rituals, edicts. But I never knew that there was a spiritual side of life. Why would I? Yet we come in here and that's what we talk about a lot. That was not a term in my vocabulary any more than resentment or relapse. I didn't know I never used those words. If someone did something to me, I would wait till I got even with them. It was never, I'm resentful. I would show revenge. I knew what that word was. I didn't know what spiritual was till we come here. And it's a totally different concept than religious.
Amen. Yeah. This is a simple, spiritual, not religious program. And all we got to do is pick up the simple spiritual toolkit laid down at our feet. We have two options. Just like we don't get to walk the dubious path of grouch and brainstorms and criticizing people, we have two options, not three, not four, not 3A1. We have two. Go on to the bitter ends or accept spiritual help. We cannot emphasize the word spiritual program more and more and more. You will hear me referring to my Christian faith. I went back to my Christian faith. The broad highways, roomy, broad, all-inclusive, never exclusive, never forbidding. I went back to my Christian faith. It was like steroids, recovery on steroids for me. But that doesn't say that I'm telling you that's what you got to do. Like we were told when we were kids, right? Or were we? All right, page 50, second paragraph. In our personal stories, where are those personal stories? They're at the back of the book. They're at the back of the book. There's 52 stories at the back. Many meetings, pretty awesome. Go check them out if you haven't. Pick one. Pick one that works for you. Pick one that speaks your story. You will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of the power which is greater than himself. Here's a nice little tip. Ever been asked to do a lead share at a meeting and have your name and these fancy flyers and these little video gifs? And you're wondering, how do I share? What do I share about? Well, there's a couple of instructions on how to do it. And one of them here is to talk about the approach and the conception of a power greater than yourself, how you established a relationship with that power. Whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience, that's a great word, has taught us that these are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. They are questions for each individual to settle for himself. This is a private matter between each alkie or addict in this room, between you and God, to settle out and iron out for yourself. Let's go see, what is our purpose? I've just told you that you get an identity in these rooms. You know, who was I? I mean, I never knew who I was. I didn't even belong to my own family. I wasn't really even one. I was biologically part of that family. There was a birth certificate that said I was born to that family, but I pretty much till about 4 years ago did not believe it. I was waiting for the adoption certificate to come from my mother, or at least for the aliens to land. But that's, yeah, you know, we get to share that kind of stuff in these rooms. So I got an identity. Thank you very much. And I got to see what the purpose is for my life. I've read Stephen Covey, how to, you know, make 7 friends and 7, whatever, those self-help books by the gazillions, because I wanted to know what my purpose was. Again, newcomer, if you've relapsed and you're back in and you want to know the secret, we tell you what your purpose is here. We get you, there's another bonus round, page 77. Right at the top, page 77. Here's the deal. Our real purpose. Hello, everybody. We get to find out what our purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. That's our purpose. We were talking about Terry Nana. He celebrates his birthday and he celebrates the day he found out why he was born. I love that. I love that. That's amazing, right? We get that. So that's our real purpose. So we are back.
Oh,
Keep getting
it says
lost.
he celebrates the day he was born and the day he found out why.
There's so many sweet deals in this program. Stick around, stick around. All right, we're back on page 50. Third paragraph. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. That's a promise. You can outline that and line it out and highlight it and put sparkly pen all over it. That is a promise. Everyone, not some of them, every one of them has gained access and has a relationship with this power.
Order
This
of things. They gain access to and then believe in. How many of us come in here believing in and have no access to? Write that down, Rob. You won't hear that as Steve's big book study.
Bill, thank you so much for that. I have been spending some time, I've been being quick to see where religious people are right and making use of what they offer. And I see, and I've been hanging out with a few people who don't have this affliction. All right. It's not even an affliction, it's a blessing. But anyway, and I see them, they've been in church their whole life, right? I have spent my entire life disproving that there was a savior, that the churches are just a big fat hoax, that none of this was true, that virgin wasn't really a virgin. I've spent my life doing this, okay? So I come into this program and my sponsor gets me living in steps 10, step 11, and step 12 immediately from day one. And I couldn't wonder, I was like, why? This doesn't make any sense to me. Like Bill said, I've never used the word resentments, fear. I fear nobody. In the meantime, I fear my own shadow. Okay, but we find that out. What happens in step 10, step 11, and step 12 is I get to gain access to a power. I still don't know what the power is. I have no idea what it looks like or where it comes from, but I get to gain access to a power because I get to pause when I'm agitated. I get to check in with other people. It takes a lot of practice, but it's almost like the cart before the horse. I get to gain access to the power first, and then I get to believe in it because I get to witness this power working for me because I'm a real alkie. I need to know what's in the deal for me. Don't tell me I got to believe in something because I'm telling you now I'm going to leave the building. I'm going to leave the building. That's what I did when I was 15. I left that church building. I want to know what's in this deal for me. And you guys are telling me, Nadia, if you live in steps 10, step 11, and you're doing 12-step work, whether you're calling a newcomer or reaching out to the homeless guy on the street, just getting out of yourself, you're going to experience a power and you're going to gain access to it. And that gets me believing. Because seeing is believing, right? Well, for someone like me anyway, seeing is believing. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for pointing that out.
Sometimes I start at the end of the movie, Nadia, because I don't want to watch all the boring fillers. So for 1 minute, let's go to the last page of this chapter, and I'll feel like we really got somewhere today. Listen to what this says, which kind of reiterates what we just discussed. So, circumstances made him willing to believe. He was crushed by the weight of his alcoholism and himself. It says he humbly offered himself to his maker. And then there's a hyphen there. Then he knew. Most alcoholics want to know, like you said, let me see what it looks like if I surrender. And what happens is we surrender and then we find out what the plan is. Right? He offers himself, then he knew. We want to know, then we'll offer, and it doesn't work that way. So we gain access to, and then we believe in as a result of experience of gaining access to the power. My belief means absolutely nothing. Watch my feet. That'll tell you what I believe, not my mouth.
Whoop, whoop. Exactly. Thank you. Back on page 50. That second last paragraph, we're in the middle. This power, because that's what we're here for, that's what this book is all about, has in each case, yeah, we're talking about every one of them, and he's saying each case, he's saying not by any mile does anybody miss this opportunity. Each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statement puts it, let's look at the record. So we've loosely used the word miracle. And then last week, for any of those who listened to the recording or who were with us, Bill expounded on the word miracle. I've used it again today. Here we go. This next paragraph. You can paraphrase it. This is the miracle of AA. This is what describes a miracle. Listen here, page 50. Here are Thousands, line it out, millions, guys, millions. We're at the million, way past millions mark, okay? Here are millions of men and women, worldly indeed, in other words, not particularly religious. They flatly declare, absolutely, another word for flatly is absolutely declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude towards that power, that's step 3, and to do certain simple things, steps 4 through to 9, there has been a revolutionary change. That's a promise. That's a promise. A revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. Not in their sobriety or their using, in their living and their thinking. I was sitting in these rooms at 18 months sober, not living, and only thinking about suicide. In the face of collapse and despair, step 1, conceding to their innermost self, that self-pity like a quicksand around him. In the face of the total failure of their human resources, step 1, part 2, life is completely unmanageable, not drinking, but my life is still unmanageable. I'm living on page 52. They found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction. Whoa, man, that's like loaded promises, that sentence, flowed into them. That's what Bill was talking about, Nana. We're transmitters for this power of God. We're just super blocked because it's flowing, but fear, delusion, self-pity, resentment just blocks that stuff, man. Our thinking. Caps on, boys. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Steps 3 to 12. Once confused, were you once confused and baffled? Were you once baffled by the seeming futility of existence? Have you been baffled? Like, why am I still alive? I'm sitting in the rooms of AA and everybody's smiling and wearing the same caps and laughing at each other. I'm watching you two. Why don't I look like these people? Were you once there? Showing the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. If you want to know what heavy going of life looks like, let's go look. Page 52, over the page. We're going to get there, but we're going to go back there again now. Are you having trouble with personal relationships? Are you a prey to misery, a prey to depression? Are you full of fear? Are you unhappy? Can you be of use to people? Can you be of real help? That's what making heavy going of life looks like. So here it is. This is a power-packed statement. Leaving aside the drink question. So you're in the rooms, you're sober, a couple of years, couple of months, and you cannot understand why you do not look like these happy chappies who are living a life of stability, happiness, and usefulness. What's going on? Why have I yet again missed the day that the manual to life has been handed out? Why? Why am I not looking like these guys? I've got nowhere else to go. Come on. What's the deal? Well, it says, leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. Their whole deportment screams that they have a solution, that they have an answer. Ebby rocked up at the door. Bill opened it. He didn't say a word, and Bill knew that this man, something had happened. His deportment shouted at him, not him preaching from a hilltop like I tend to get. You're still sticking around with me, so obviously I'm making some sense. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith.
Faithful one. Let's take a look at at what they're talking about here. They flatly declares this, they came to believe a power greater than themselves to take a certain attitude and do certain simple things. There has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, and happiness and sense of direction flowed into them. Let's go to page 63 in the book. It's a simple requirement. Simple requirement is that I'm going to quit playing God. I'm going to decide to quit running my life because it's not working. When we sincerely took such a position, we haven't done any steps yet. We haven't put forth much effort. We've made a decision that we're going to quit running our lives. We've made a decision that if, at the very least, we're not the be all end all. The agnosticism has started to have a breakthrough. And then it says all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer being all powerful. I'm sorry, we're on page 63, because I know we're not going to get here till the next decade. The 9th edition will be out by then. But listen to what it says. At the very end, it says, as we felt new power flow in, that's what he's telling us over here. We're still at step 2. Even though we're reading the instructions for step 3, what they're describing is an unsurrendered life run on self-will. We haven't uttered the prayer yet. We haven't gotten to the point where it says we are now at step 3. It says we're warming up. As we felt new power flow in, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we began to be sensed with the new peace and all that good stuff flowing into us, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter. We were reborn. There's not a lot of big deal to get to this point. The fact is they're asking me to change my mind. The hardest thing, right? That's a big bang, my sponsor used to tell me. He says, a big pop when your head comes out of rectal defilate, and all of a sudden your mind opens up to something other than what you can come up with. And that's what they're talking about here. A few simple requirements. The first requirement is I be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Next, we decided that hereafter in this production of life, God was going to be the director. He is the principal. If you have a problem with directions, we'll call him a principal. If you didn't like what the guy in school did to you with the SWATs, we'll call it a father. We'll give you any name you want, as long as you are not the head. You're the tail. If you can take that position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. If nothing remarkable is happening in your life, you haven't sincerely taken the position. That's a preposition, right? If this, or yeah, if this, then that. In logic, they used to call it that. If A, then B. If not A, then no B. If you sincerely take the position, remarkable things are going to happen immediately, because guess what? The idiot that's been running your life is now sitting on the sidelines letting someone else do it. If nothing remarkable is happening in your life right now, you are still under management of your own self. My whatever that thing is they put on the outside, going out of business sale, under new management. I'm not the author of my life anymore. Not because I don't want to be, but because it doesn't work. And guess what happens? All sorts of remarkable things. I got a new employer. He's got all my benefits laid out. All I got to do is show up and punch my time card. I don't need to go change my name on the front of the building instead of Walmart to make it Swan Mart. That's not happening today. I don't need to go back in the office and tell them how they could do a better job. What I do is I punch the time card, reporting for duty, and everything I need is taken care of. I don't know why I couldn't see what I couldn't see, know what I couldn't know, and believe what I couldn't believe. Thank God for this process here.
Absolutely. Living on page 63. That's our work contract. There's HR. Call human resources. We need to know what our work contract looks like. You go to page 63. Texas,
Someone
thanks,
said
honey.
they said they were working on their first step. I said, oh, are you drinking? They said, no, I'm working on my first step with my sponsor. I said, oh, so you and your sponsor are drinking? He said, no. I'm working on the first three steps. I said, so you're drinking and you're managing your life, creating havoc everywhere you go. The first three steps are ideas. There's not a lot of work there. The idea is A, I'm an alcoholic and my life's a mess. B, no human power. C, that God could and would have, he was sought. The first two steps being convinced we were approaching the throne. We were now at step three. What a way to end the meeting, Nod.
Finally, awesome. Let's stop recording.